Very good morning to all of you.
Good day to everybody. We have a global audience today. So, good day, good afternoon, good morning, and a warm welcome to everyone. So, let's begin. It's 11 a.m. IST. So, warm welcome to all the participants, esteemed panelists, and partners in what promises to be a very hot summer. As per the IMD, there is many heat waves forecast all over the country. So, stay safe, stay hydrated. At the outset, some announcements. The participants may find themselves muted as they join. Don't worry. Rest assured that we'd love to hear from you in the true spirit of stakeholder engagement. We will inclusivity of everyone on the call. You would have a question and answer at the end, giving you a full chance to interact with the panelists and ask all the questions. But feel free to post your queries, any feedback that you may have in terms of content, voice, clarity, etc. Any comments, questions, please post it in the chat box as we go along. Given the context and the webinar connects, we would happy to field the questions as we go along. So please go ahead and use the chat box. We will all be able to stay connected and be interactive. So we want to have your participation also. April is a month of diverse festivities, the month of Ramadan. The Hindu New Year comes. It's Chaitra Navratri, the start of the Pudandu, Poila Baishak, Baisakhi, Ram Navami, Gudi Padwa, Chitra Purnima, all the festivals. And for those of the people who've been busy into festivals and preparation, and of course, the two big games, the IPL and the elections, kind consent, if you wish to record this session for posterity for any late latifs who might wake up and want to catch up on what they've missed. So folks, if you've got a prompt asking you for a consent for this webinar, please feel free and go ahead to take this session, take the call. Yeah. So wonderful. Welcome. We hope to see many more of you joining as the session progresses. Welcome to webinar 3 in the series of sustainability. The series is 1. We began, if you remember, on the 6th of February, having an analysis of industry practices in sustainability reporting in financial and environmental success. With that as the outcome, we looked at how we do that. That was where we began on the first webinar. In the second one, we tried to demystify sustainability and how it works in business towards risks, profits, and growth. They say a past imperfect is a future tense. So this webinar focuses on sustainability as a strategy. Building a future-ready corporate culture is what we're talking about here. The webinar is hosted by three of us. It's a joint venture between DA Consulting and Rosefield. A few words on Rosefield Energy Tech. Rosefield is a team of experienced professionals from the oil and gas industry. We advise companies in the areas of energy sustainability with a broad focus on circular economy, which forms the key element of sustainability. We help organizations achieve targets, particularly in the era of EPRs. We have 5 extended product responsibilities that's been rolled out by the government of India, as you're aware. Rosefield works closely with the government agencies like Niti Aayog, CPCB, industry players, including the public sector units, various MNCs and local players, advising them on various areas of implementing circular economies in their practices across the businesses. Rosefield Energy Tech also conducts training programs, the latest being a certified training program on the sustainability essentials for professionals in circular economy and trade. Also bringing various stakeholders together, organizing various industry conferences across oil and gas space. They're also registered valuers in management consulting. DA Consulting, their partner, specialized in taxation, compliance, outsourcing, business valuation, life cycle support, both for inbound investments into India and management consulting, with the key offerings including tax advisory, transaction support services, tax optimization, life cycle support, and of course, audits, internal reviews, business valuation, and of course, ESG. Let me also introduce Iris.
Thank you. So I'll take that. Iris is a RegTech company, and we are into the RegTech space from almost 23 years plus. working across 50 countries, to be very precise, 53 plus countries, and working with 30 plus regulatories. So we do the regulatory implementations of the XBRL and IXBRL domain with 6,000 plus clients worldwide. So when we say 6,000 plus, customer base worldwide, it also includes, Europe, Middle East, and of course, India. So we are a listed company and with a deep market expertise in the XBRL and IXBRL domain. To our credits, we have accolades and awards, with Best FinTech being the most prestigious award, along with Best MSME Tech 2022 and several other awards. Our basic RegTech space works into three main segments, that is collect, create, and consume. In the collect space, our software platforms have the regulatory solutions which collects data, and these are the implementations. In the create space, we create the mandate specific filings, or you can say the compliances. And from the consume segment, we are into the consumption of the data, which necessarily means that whatever is the filed data or whatever is the submitted data, that is leveraged, or we leverage the data which is submitted with the regulators. From the consume segment, we have our product lines like iConnect, we have Iris Peridot. Many of you over here who are there joined from India, you must be aware about Iris Peridot. It is the GST application. You can just scan the GST number and you get the details of the filing. So that is one type of application for from the consume segment. From create, we have Iris Carbon. Iris Carbon is the SaaS platform and helps in the regulatory compliances. That we also have Iris GST, which is also a SaaS platform, ensuring your seamless compliance with the GST mandate, whether it is reconciliation, whether it is GSTR1, and now IRP. We are also IRP. So in working in this RegTech space becomes very essential when it is backed by technology. That is all about Iris. Our footprint across the globe, as I mentioned, across 53 plus countries, multi-clientele. So yes, we do have to our credits certain banks as well with whom we work, and our solutions are leveraged over there. And yes, that is all about Iris. And now,
thank you, Anu. Thank you, Anu. I guess for those of you who joined it for the first time in this series, Iris into RegTech. RegTech is regulatory technology, an emerging technology that involves the implementation of digital tools and processes to help organizations improve and manage their compliance. ESG goes beyond compliance, and the XBRL we spoke about, we mentioned this in the last couple of webinars, is extensible business reporting language. As some of you listed companies otherwise are into reporting of ESG on BRSR, business responsibility sustainability reporting. XBRL basically makes non-financial and financial disclosures highly transparent, ensuring that every data point is marked up with a XBRL tag, can be recorded digitally. That's the advantage of all that we have. Thank you so much for the context and connection. With that, as an opener, let me also give a context to the series before we introduce the speakers. Why ESG is so critical here. With the increasing scrutiny from capital providers, regulatory bodies, and wider public, companies with strong sustainability practices are not just preferred but expected. It's not just it's become a business imperative, not just an optional as it was in the past with mandates coming in. This entire series of 3 webinars, we're on the 3rd, intends to equip all the business leaders with the knowledge and tools to navigate this complex landscape, ensuring that the ESG agenda is not just a compliance requirement, but a core component of the strategic vision for growth and resilience. This, like I said, is the 3rd, the final installment of the 3-part webinar series on ESG. The intention of the hosts here is to inspire, educate, and empower a corporate sustainability culture. And like we said, DA Consulting and Rosefield Tech with Iris has intended to structure and curate the series accordingly. As businesses face increasing pressures from consumers, regulators, and investors to adopt eco-friendly practices, there's a need to integrate ESG into the core of the company operations, make it part of the DNA. That's what is the important thing here. This session will try to understand and demystify ways and means of doing that through corporate enterprise understanding, through expert insights, with real world case studies. We had a couple in the last session, a couple of series of the webinars. We had examples, case studies, interactive discussions. We try to explore innovative strategies to embed ESG in our company's DNA to ensure, obviously, sustainable long-term growth, regulatory compliance, and a positive brand image. Today's webinar, folks, is some of the takeaways would be, you would learn how sustainability can be a catalyst for innovation, how you can open up new markets, create competitive advantage, how we can stay ahead of the regulatory trends with insights on how to exceed the standards and turn compliance into an opportunity, to understand the impact of sustainability on brand perception and how to leverage it for customer loyalty, to discover ways of engaging and motivating employees through meaningful sustainability initiatives, improving productivity and retention, and to help you get equipped with strategies to identify and mitigate environmental risks before they impact your business. With that as the context, let's introduce the speakers. Hey, so that's a little bit about me. With my 4 decades of experience, having done a little bit of ESG implementation, I've been on both sides of the fence as a practitioner, as an expert, otherwise here. But overall, if I were to tell you that I got 4 decades of managing ESG, you might wonder how is this possible? Because sustainability came in a couple of decades ago. ESG was a term that's trending the last decade or so. How did this begin? So I'll tell you a story there. I began my entire business as a process engineer, as a chemical engineer, in a company called Indian Rayons, an Aditya Birla Group company, where the first job was, my first project was in recycling and recovery of the viscose rayon washing. All the chemicals that went into the washing, how do we ensure that we recycle it and reuse it? Which is where the 3 R's, the RRR, we got one more on the panel today. This is how the entire recycling, the reuse, this was where it all began here. My second gig was in a company called Garda Chemicals, which was in a polluted industrial belt in Ankleshwar. But this plant went ahead and put in the first incinerator, first zero liquid discharge plant, and we're talking 35 years ago, beyond compliance. That was the theme we spoke about here. In Asian Paints, there was various business continuity challenges that happened after the mother plant, which is supposed to produce Apcolite Royal, had a major fire and got gutted. How do you manage in the other plants to ensure that business was sustained? Was the story of resilience and business continuity, which also underlines what ESG is all about. With BP, the first time we put up a 40 megawatt plant with Suzlon, eliminating 70,000 tons of CO2 per year. Now, why would a British Petroleum want to put up a wind farm in India? And this is where the story of ESG begins, where, in the developed countries in Europe, which is where the pollution began with the Industrial Revolution, they had the mandates to abate the carbon footprint. And this is where the entire journey has begun there. And that's why the entire carbon footprint reduction kind of is a mandate. And they say the price is paid by the polluter here. In the biggest refining hub in the world, in SR, the journey began because of a need to acquire another company. This company had a vision to go global. We acquired a refinery in Africa, in Kenya, and then went in to acquire a Shell refinery in Stanlow in UK. And when we went into the due diligence, they asked us, how green are you? How are you? And they hadn't heard of this company here. And that's when the journey began so early in life, into understanding how in an oil and gas difficult to abate industry also can get into sustainability there. There was a pull from a company about to acquire, which is interesting there. Dr. Reddy's was a mature company when I joined in as the head of sustainability, but there was pressures from clients who did due diligence like GSK, who raised the bar. And today, if this has gone beyond from the triple bottom line to the quadruple bottom line, building the 4th P, getting the purpose behind the company's cause for principles, is because of tough customers there. Pfizer, we had Sridhar on the call last session. Last webinar, we had Sridhar speaking on the 5th of February, speaking about the need for how the purpose of the organization led them to have a green office in BKC in Mumbai. So the purpose, and that's where, as a force for good, Pfizer played big brother to the pharmaceutical supply chain initiative, the expectations on the third parties, toll manufacturers. So the kind of tone was set for all the pharma value chain by Pfizer here. At Tata, sustainability was the way of life, a 100-year-old company. The company that Tata Projects, where I was, which said the 9 month span, how much can you control? What can you do? And this is where, with a focus, with the group, the Tata group kind of came in and convinced us to do a maiden sustainability report, including assurance. Sterling and Wilson was the next story, the next gig in Madhashatars, where a world's biggest solar company at that time, during the lockdown, got listed 2019-20, and as part of the investors, the expectation of the pre-qualification of the vendors, carbon abatement was key there. Understand the basic footprint there to get net carbon neutrality in its first year of reporting was what happened, all thanks to the push of the IPOs and pre-qualifications from global customers there. Various companies, you heard of S&P and the global rating there, got poor ratings. And this is where these companies tried to improve the ratings. But they got a dismal rating, something like 12 on 100. They said, what is wrong? And that's where they began the journey of understanding what to do on reporting. And you spoke about SEBI last time. The BRSR reporting got various companies understanding the ESG expectations and beginning the journey there. So friends, just to say that ESG can come in from various dimensions. Some of these, it could be from the customers, could be from people acquiring, could be from your own internal, external regulatory authorities. But all of these leads to where we are today. Thank you so much. I would also like to introduce the next speaker, a panelist, Captain Tapas Mazumdar, an independent director and sustainability expert. Captain, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Shankar. My name is Captain Tapas Mazumdar, and I am a student of sustainability, I guess. With all the developments that is happening, I doubt whether there is anyone called sustainability expert. But yes, I continue to remain a student of sustainability. I am a certified sustainability practitioner. I also sit on the board of the Board of Education for NMIMS, guiding their sustainability courses and a visiting faculty there itself. More importantly, I am an independent director on the corporate boards, especially with Ram Rahan, and I am providing the governance and the oversight required for the company to build a strong brand as a sustainable and a responsible business. I started off with writing of sustainability reports, eventually into assurance, and we do a lot of sustainability related training, right at board level, at the report writer level. We also do it for BRSR professionals or professionals who are going to get into BRSR reporting, and for supply chain and for procurement professionals as well. I have a humble beginning. I started my career for the Indian Army. Still am an infantry officer, I guess. Even if you're out of the army, you can't get the army out of you. So very much part of the system. I belong to the 5th Battalion of the Sikh Light Infantry. That is my home. And the entire passion for sustainability started way back about 5 years. And to be very honest, it gives a lot of meaning to what I do, and I enjoy what I do. The value proposition that we bring to the table is very simple, because I'm not an engineer, I'm not a scientist, but we are good at writing scorecards. So if we can show companies an ROI in investing in their own sustainability practice, there will be investment. If there is investment, there will be practice. And if there is practice, there will be impact. Till date, that is the basic value proposition that we bring to the table. Over to you, Shankar.
Thank you so much. As you can see, Captain Tapas, a modest man with nothing to be modest about. And it's nice to hear about the various hats you're wearing, and the sustainability practitioners is just one of them. We also have amongst us on the panel today an ESG enthusiast, Ram Raman, an industry mentor. Is Ram joined?
Yes, he has.
I'm here. I'm very much here. Yes.
Wonderful. Happy to get you out of the middle of the meetings. Let's hear a little bit
Yes.
about Ram. Ram is a seasoned leader with great years of experience. Over to you, Ram.
Thank you. Thank you, Shankar. Yes. Yeah. Good morning and very nice to join this webinar. So, as the slide reads, I spent half of my life with BSF. I do have a PhD and a research background. In fact, my original passion was research in agriculture, and I joined the corporate world initially in R&D, and then found a passion for other things. And the companies I worked for also gave me the opportunity to kind of explore other avenues, and eventually ended up running businesses for the last 15 years. So I was the MD of CMD of BSF India and all the companies of South Asia. And after retirement, I also did a 2.5 year stint with another chemical company, listed company called PI Industries. So my own exposure to sustainability and the concept of sustainability and concept of responsible business actually started immediately after joining the corporate world back in 1992, when my journey started with Sandoz. And I'm happy to share some of that later on in the conversation. But it continued, and I guess the real learnings and passion came in when I joined BSF, which was a pioneer large chemical company which understood the need to embrace sustainability in almost every aspect of business. Back 25 years ago, when sustainability was still a very nascent concept which was fashionable amongst a very few people. So later on during the conversation, I can also probably kind of share some of those elements of how do you integrate a very difficult concept as sustainability into a large organization, right from the top all the way down to the last person. But yeah, I'm very excited to be here. I'm currently the Dean and Director of KJ Somaya Institute of Management, one of the leading business schools in India. And I'm trying to really bridge the gap between academia and industry in business education. So yeah, look forward to chatting with all of you.
Wonderful, Raman. Thank you so much. Your story, although you say came out from retirement, are into the academics, building a bridge, reminds me and reminds all of us of the other Tala, the other Talevar, who has done exactly what you said. Look forward to hearing the insights from Raman. Thank you so much. Welcome on board. So we have Anushi. You met Anushi before. She's a global head for customer success at Iris Business. Let's say a little bit more about Anushi.
Thank you, Shankar, for that introduction. And thank you all the speakers for introducing yourself and setting up the context. I am Anushi, and I work with Iris Business Services Limited, a listed company, since 12 years now. Definitely not, as good in experience as all the speakers over here. But yes, we as a RegTech company are into the converting the data into technology, leveraging the technology into more meaningful aspects and insights. I head the customer success for Iris Carbon, which is the product line, and also, for whatever offerings we have for the business. I'm a chartered accountant by qualification, and yes, currently into XBRL and iXBRL domain. We are leading into the ESG landscape now, and supporting it with technology by bringing in the aspects such as how the corporates should go ahead and start reporting, not only in India. In India, we already have BRSR, but across the globe, there are different frameworks, there are different mandates, just like CSRD, which are now getting implemented and will be functional very soon. So we are bringing in into the aspects wherein all of these frameworks are covered in, and helping the corporates to comply with the mandate part of the ESG. That's all about me. Thank you.
Wonderful, Anushi. Thank you so much for your insights. This data is the new gold, and you know where the gold prices are going now. And here is where Anushi and Iris can help us get the connect here. So, friends, we got a lovely set of speakers on the panel. But let's step back a little and understand the importance of ESG or sustainability as we speak. You are all aware of the triple bottom line, and you know what ESG is all about. So, just to give you the context on why this is important, you know, there is the triple bottom line. The ultimate bottom line, they say, is financial, also termed governance, because it looks at revenue growth, it looks at the profit margin, the return on investment, the capital cost, the risk management, the valuation of the enterprise, the appeal to the investors. How do you measure economic progress? It's what they call economic prosperity, typically what they call profits, which is not the dirty word. As Captain Tapas said in the last session, it's the reason why we are in business. And that's why annually we have and quarterly we have reviews, we have economic performance that's being monitored there. The other bottom line is about the planet, and this they call either, although they call it environmental, it's operational, you would say. This measures and is measured by the environmental performance. It's called in various terms environmental stewardship. This looks at energy, water, waste, materials, emissions. It also deals with operational excellence, design efficiencies, product and service opportunities in businesses, looks at the sustainable supply chain, the life systems impact, product recalls, process improvements. So this is, again, the planet which we talk about so much here. And then there is the people, which talks about the community, the health and safety of people, the social impact we have, the fair compensation, diversity, inclusion, fair or equal opportunity, education, reward, recognition, measured by the social performance and call it the social equity. So typically, what's the importance of sustainability? If you look at the triple bottom line, on profits, you typically have the CFO of the company looking at these critical parameters. And this is what looks at what happens. This is what happens when you look at the economic prosperity. You also have the chief operating officer, the COO, who looks at the planet and looks at the operational parameter, looks at environmental performance. And you have the CHRO then looking at the people part of it. So how does this all matter? As Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. There is lunch and dinner. And as you know, depending on how much you eat, it's your shape that you have. But typically, ESG or sustainability is also a tool for decision making. You have to wear the hat of the CFO to ensure that every decision you make is viable. You also got to wear the hat of the COO to ensure that the decisions you make are bearable, where you look at the factors that get into the environmental performance. You also need to look at the hat of the CHRO and therefore ensure that the decisions are equitable. So ultimately, this triple bottom line is the connector, the soft spot between each of these. And that's why we call sustainability or ESG. These three factors help determine the quality of governance and risk management that's prevalent in an organization and provide long-term prospects, as we said in the earlier sessions, of how investors make informed decisions there. So friends, that is the most critical parameter there, where if you look at ESG as a tool for decision making, you understand that ESG denotes a formal strategy to address environmental, social, and governmental parameters and measure the triple bottom line, the profits, planet, and people. As we spoke in the last couple of webinars, it's also important to align with the purpose to create long-term stakeholder value by managing risks, embracing opportunities, by optimizing the economic, social, and environmental bottom lines. So friends, sustainability is the connector of this bottom line initiatives that any organization, any enterprise needs to have. Therefore, let me summarize by saying every decision to be sustainable needs to pass through all the three sieves to be equitable, bearable, and viable. And that's why the need for sustainable development comes in there. Friends, normally we say, as Peter Drucker has said, we do a strategy there, and we have measurement of what we do. We measure it by the micrometer screw gauge, screen it by the vernier calipers, but we execute it with an axe. This is what happens to most strategies there. So I'd like to begin by asking Captain Tapas, when we have sustainability that's planned at the board level, how do you assess the effectiveness at the grassroots of an organization? And how do you think companies can successfully transition all their plans into results that have impact? Over to you, Captain Tapas, for your insights.
Thank you so much, Shankar. That's a very valid point. because sustainability is something which is planned at the board level. But when you go to measure the impact of it, the impact is measured at the grassroots. What I mean by grassroots is impact is measured at your branch level, at your factory level, at your plant level. And that fundamentally means that your people have to practice it. So the best laid strategies can really go wrong if your people are not on board and if they are not executed. All right, like the famous case of the saying of Mr. Peter Drucker, who says culture eats strategy for breakfast, which is very true. I am sure all of us agree to that. No matter how good your strategy is, and if you really look at, I mean, not so distant past, you will find many examples, could be even within your own organizations, where a good plan, a good strategy, a good approach, a well-meant, well-intended initiative has actually just been tethered when it came to implementation. Right. So what is important here is implementation. See, at the end of the day, when we talk about climate change, climate action, all of these, all the concepts, all the models, everything is good. At the end of the day, if it does not translate to impact, then it's useless. We can build the best of models like so many frameworks we have. Okay. And it's a simple observation, right? We've had so many frameworks coming up, GRI, UNGC, TCFD, all of these are fantastic models. And the number of companies reporting on these models are quadrupling literally every quarter. And they're not small companies, they're large organizations. Just like in India, the BRSR is for the top 1,000. Same with other exchanges, they have done similar initiatives. But our carbon emissions, there is not even a downward trend. The only downward trend happened when COVID struck. And that's because industrial activity came. So obviously there is a gap. Are we getting too excellent in our planning and modeling and all of that without actually focusing on implementation and impact, where I think that's where the key is. Let me talk about two organizations which benefited and both positively and negatively, which were impacted by culture. Like in the last seminar, we spoke about the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan, which was probably the first time ever where a large organization at a global level picked up sustainability as its business strategy. And Paul Polman was an outsider to Unilever. He had not grown up the ranks. So there was a lot of change that was happening. I mean, Unilever is a leadership school of the market. Of people who don't become CEOs in Unilever become CEOs elsewhere. I mean, their leadership development is legendary. But here was a guy who had to be brought in from outside. And what exactly did he do? He could have taken so many strategies. And the most common and the most easiest one to do was to be the cost leadership as a strategy. And that's very common in their market. He chose not to. Paul Polman joined Unilever in 2009. In 2008, Unilever stocks fell 35%. The competitors were beginning to gain market share while they were losing. And there was a financial crisis going on. All of this combined, the story wasn't looking good for them. And here comes a man from outside and says, you know what, we'll take sustainability as a business strategy. And as part of that, what exactly did he do? He integrated the metrics or the responsibility or the targets in each and every product of Unilever. So they not only had to sell, and revenue was one of the measures, But how did they perform on the sustainability goals product-wise? And by doing this, he fundamentally pushed sustainability down to the last person because now they were getting evaluated on their products, businesses, sustainability strategy as well. So this resulted in multiple initiatives at various levels, small, big, medium, all sorts. And while they were doing, like the Lifebuoy case, right? So they were promoting hygiene and sanitation, and Lifebuoy was on your TV screen. And they captured the secondary market very well using that which enhanced sales. So here earlier, where you had the sales department selling, where you had the network selling, now you literally had the entire organization selling. Because to conduct all of these initiatives, you need HR, you need admin, you need procurement, you need all of them. So earlier sales was restricted to few. Now the entire organization was selling. And that's the way they benefited. And we saw the financial benefit in terms of the stock price and the market cap that Unilever gained in the following 8 years. Now, exactly the opposite impact was with a company called Boeing. Now, we obviously know Boeing. Can you go back to the previous slide? We obviously know Boeing. Fantastic company. Boeing at one point in time was known for its engineering excellence. Airbus had a very tough time competing with Boeing on quality. Business stopped at a point at Boeing. After that, safety, excellence, that took over. Today, we don't relate to Boeing in what I just said. The windows and emergency doors falling off mid-flight, which was unimaginable before McDonnell's Douglas took over Boeing. And when they took over, they decided to make it the most valuable company. When the management's focus changed, the culture within changed, and the quality went down, and that risked passenger safety. The number of accidents relating to Boeing significantly grew. Earlier, the entire management team was with the engineering team in the same location at Seattle. After the Douglas takeover, they were moved to an economic capital, as a result of which, and the entire focus had more on getting the aircrafts immediately as quickly as possible on the tarmac. That impacted quality, and Airbus took advantage of it. Today, Airbus is far more dependable than what Boeing was earlier is what Airbus is today. And it's an amazing change. At one point in time, in the manufacturing of Boeing aircrafts, even if the Julia-most fellow raised a red flag saying there's a safety issue we need to deal with, production would stop to address that query and then move on. Today, their employees don't have that kind of culture in that organization. Culture is a twin-edged sword. You can either use it to get your job done, to do it the right way, and get sustained benefit of it. If not, it can slice your organization down to pieces. The next slide, please. When we talk about culture, we typically ask anyone, what's the culture of your organization? Broadly, you get answers like these. We have an open culture, friendly culture, changing culture, it's team-oriented, it's a fun culture. Wonderful. But if you really look at it, the next slide, please. To me, it appears more like this. The blind man and the elephant. Each one of us experience culture, experience it, and we define it to be that, but we still don't know the entire animal in one side, just like leadership. We are still discovering many aspects of leadership. Similarly, culture is very big and very complex. Same two employees in the same organization might give you different perspective of the culture because what they experience in that company may be different, and that probably starts with their immediate managers. So culture does have many shades. And what is more interesting, there is no one culture in an organization. There are multiple cultures. If I am a more liberal manager, while you are more control free, the culture in your respect, your team and my team is going to be very different, although we belong to the same organization. So there are many cultures within, but there will always be a dominant culture. And typically, that is the culture that is at the board level, at the CEO level. Culture flows top to bottom, like water. Next slide. So culture is hard to describe and culture is hard to change. But let me take a, please, go back please. Let me take a pause here. Why are we talking about culture when it comes to sustainability? This is important to understand. When we are planning for any initiative in the corporate, at the top, your success depends on how well it can be planned down below. We already discussed that. Now, if I have to make the transition, if I have to make employees practice, implement, there are so many routes that I can take. I can take out a circular and say, you know what, from today onwards, each one of us is going to focus on reducing our energy consumption. And we will measure it. And at the end of the year, you will be appraised on it. It can be a directive. That is a way of doing it. There is also a way where we try and create a consensus. And that is also a right way to do it. There's nothing right or wrong while we are doing this. What we are trying to discuss here is the path of least resistance. Now, when we are trying to address 1,000 employees, it's very difficult to change the culture over a short period of time. It is very difficult to change their behaviors over a short period of time. The reason why we prefer to use culture rather than directives and consensus and all of that is for a simple reason that culture is like, if I compare it, it's like the operating system in which your computer works, in which all the apps of different types work in and make you productive. It is like the very air that we breathe, the air that we operate in. If I can make that conducive, if I can give it the right direction, then I will influence the behavior of the entire lot. I don't have to go personalized way, directive way, because directive way will create resistance at a greater degree. Consensus can create divergence at a very high degree. But when you are impacting culture, you are the one in control. You are the one channelizing this entire thing in the way that you want to, the direction that you want. That's why we focus on culture and not anything else. Next slide. Now, there are a few characteristics of culture, and this is important from an integration point of view. Culture is shared with a group. So you don't have culture which is just mine or my teams or the board. Culture is shared. There is a higher degree of ownership. That's why you often hear, okay, in my company, we don't work this way. That is an indicator of the strong culture that you have. So in the sustainability practitioners or in IRIS or in DA, this is the way we work. When your new joinees come and you tell them, hey, in IRIS, this is the way we work. These are our values, and these are the examples of how people have lived their values. Because it is shared and it is passed on from one generation to another, from one batch to another. The second thing, culture is learned by the members of the social group. It is not genetically inherited. So a person coming in from a very different organization can adjust and adapt to your culture because he's constantly learning. Culture itself keeps learning and keeps adapting. This is very important to understand. Culture is not static. As things progress, we keep learning. So I consider my generation to be the luckiest, and plus minus my generation to be the luckiest. We have seen times when there were no TVs at all to black and white TV. And I clearly remember that because those TVs did not have remote. And you had to manually change. So the remote of that TV was me. Everybody would say, want to go and change the channel, bring on Doordarshan, and I would go running and change that. So I was a remote. We saw those massive black telephones come in, and the fellow who came had the telephone was a king in the entire locality. Today we have phones here. We have seen a lot of transition. And the key remains in how we continue to adapt and continue to learn and maximize on what threats and opportunities are coming up. So culture is something which is not genetically inherent, it's learned. Today we have a culture X. Going forward, it will be different. India earlier was a regulated economy. But when changes happen, all of us adapted. Today we are known for a startup ecosystem. 20 years back, 30 years back, trust me, nobody would have imagined this was possible. Third point, culture is integrated. If you change, if there is a change happening in place A, it will impact others as well. There is a connectivity. And moreover, culture is adaptive. Next slide. There are three important things that culture comprises of, which we should understand. Norms. The second is values. And third is behavior. The visible part of culture is behavior. That is what we see and say, okay, the culture of this place is so and so. If we can get the masses behavior according to what we want, which supports sustainability. Think through it. If I'm going to reduce energy consumption in the organization, your employees' behavior has to change. They have to get conscious, okay, I'm going to switch off my computer or laptop before I leave my company, before I leave for the day. Because many of them keep it on because next day it becomes easier to log in. So that is a behavior change. It's a small change multiplied by number of employees and number of days of the year. Behavior is finally what we look at. The previous slide. You drive behaviors through values and you create norms. Norms are unsaid rules of a culture. Like in the when I just said, in our company we don't do it like this. That is a norm. And when there is a violation of norms, peer pressure comes in. So when I took my first job as a medical rep with Boots Pharmaceuticals, after my graduation, till the time the army application was going through, we used to finish our mandated calls in the first 3 days of the week. And then we would, 4 days, including the Sunday, was literally a holiday. because we had to do minimum an average of the week. At that time I was going steady, now my wife. So trust me, we had a lot of things, including catching up on movies and all of that. Life was very busy at that time too. But when we had the first union meeting, and the head of the union, a very senior person, he actually sat with us and said, okay, I know what you kids are doing. Stop it. We have a contract which says average of this, but it implies that we do a minimum of so many per day. Now what happened here? We were flouting the norms, not that I knew the norm at that time. We were flouting the norms. And then you had your peers putting the pressure for you to comply. And then we comply. So norms are very powerful. All right, next slide. At the end of the day, this is a vehicle. It has got 4 wheels, it's got a wonderful engine, and it's got some good interiors. It is a vehicle that takes you from place A to place B. The bus also does the same thing. The auto rickshaw also does the same thing. And my car, Ciaz, also does the same thing. But owning a Merc, something very prestigious. Why? Because here is an organization that took one thing very seriously. They said we will do the best or nothing. And the entire organization culture was built on this one thing, best or nothing. Even the people in the organization would think in these lines. And that's how they build a product which today is a matter of prestige. And yes, they get a premium for their product. So it makes economic sense. And it makes a lot of sense, even in terms of prestige, valuations, everything. It is a culture that drove it to best or nothing. Next slide. And this is not built, culture, next slide please. It is not built suddenly. It is built over a period, it's built over generations. The trust factor is the core. And haven't we seen it in Tata Group, recognized globally? And that's because consistently over the period of so many decades, they have focused. So it takes time, it takes consistency to build it. Next slide. Now this is a small little story. And this is important to understand from the culture point of view as well. So the story goes like, it's a very small one. So one of the Indian Maharajas was this during the British time, was very fascinated about cars, and he wanted to have a Rolls Royce. So he bought a Rolls Royce. So in those days, you didn't have aircrafts and all. So they would come in ships. So it would take about 30 days or whatever time that it took. So he ordered, the car was manufactured, all of that. And then after a very patient wait, the car came. So in those days, when the car was sent, the engineer would be sent along with, who would ensure the car is handed over and is functioning well, all of that. So there was a British national engineer who came along with the vehicle. So the ship docked, the car was taken off the ramp, and the king was very excited. He wanted to drive it right from day one, right from that spot. He said, yes, sir, it's your car. So he drove very proudly and everybody clapping and, wow, this is great. And it went over a culvert, a small bridge, and then the vehicle stopped. It is very embarrassing. A Rolls Royce just stopped. The vehicle wasn't moving at all. So the engineer got off the car, he started checking everything, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, sir, if you give us this car back, we will give you 2 Rolls Royce in a month's time. But the king was very happy. 2 Rolls Royce for the price of 1. Why not? He says, okay, I'll agree, but you'll have to tell me why are you giving me this offer. He says first to agree. He says, okay, I agree. And then he said, sir, we forgot to put the engine in the car. The moral of the story is that your brand image can only take you that much. At the end of the day, it is performance. Okay, a small joke. All right, next slide. Performance is the key. If you're going to integrate everything into your culture, you have to also understand the other one. I'm sharing an observation. We have so many employees who come and work with us. Each of these employees, they come and work with you because salary, because of career opportunities, because of job security. There could be so many things. How on earth can you get such a diverse group and assume you have 1,000 employees work on your sustainability plan to help you achieve your goals? These guys are professionals whom you have hired. You pay a fee, which is their salary. You give them a bonus, which is based on their performance. And you give them career progression based on your requirement and their capability. So they come 9 o'clock, perform their job, leave. Their job description says, do my accounting work properly. Sustainability committee, why should they do it? Understanding this angle a little bit is important. The reason why an employee comes in, look at it from an employee point of view. And I'm just giving the worst case scenario. Not all employees are like this. Every day in the morning, he literally fights a Mahabharata to reach office. Whether he's in the train or he's in the bus or he's in his own car in the traffic. It's literally a fight. Then he comes and he enters the office, rushes, swipes in, and there he has his boss waiting. Someone he may not be liking really. But kya kare? You can't select your boss, right? The boss can select his team. He has to deal with that, plus office politics, plus all of the mess that normally happens at the work. वो सब झेलता है. Then he goes back home again fighting yet another battle to reach home. And probably when he goes home, if his family life is great, wonderful. If not, there's yet another battle that he fights. It is tough for him. But he's coming to you, he's working with you, basically because he's got some value in what you are offering, which could be, like I said, it could be salary, it could be career progress, it could be security, whatever the case may be. It is very difficult, I'm being very honest. It is very difficult to get employees willingly contribute to your sustainability plan. And the one way that it can be done is through culture. There are three things if you control of an employee, you can get him to do it willingly. One, you must have control over his raise, about his performance appraisal and his compensation. You must have control over his career progression. And third, of course, you must have control over his leave. Any corporate initiative which does not connect with at least one of these three things is bound to fail over a period of time. So if your sustainability practice is not linked to KPIs, which in turn is linked to his compensation, to his performance, the chances are it will fall flat. If your performance appraisal, if your sustainability practices is not linked to career progression, so when you're promoted to a vice president, your sustainability awareness qualification should be X. If you don't have that chalked out, this will fall flat. This is very important to understand from a micro point of view, from an employee point of view. Okay. Next slide. Okay. When we talk about culture, how do we integrate? It's such a big thing, it's such a complicated. I'm going to talk about 5 things that you can do starting tomorrow. And I'm really simplifying this to the core. First, the use of symbols. Why are symbols important? Like when you think about the Egyptians, you will have a symbol in your mind. When you think about the Romans, you'll think about something in your mind. I come from an army background, so I can give you examples from the army. We have a wonderful culture in India. Okay. And it is not that everybody is kind of out of control. No, it is not. It is well regulated, well organized, and the entire organization is wonderfully lubricated. Right from the fighting arms, right to our chief. This is important. Now, I'm sure you know the highest gallantry award that can be given in wartime and peacetime. The highest gallantry award is the Paramveer Chakra. And in peacetime, the highest gallantry award is Ashok Chakra. Now, when we joined the academy, we were also aspirants of these. This is if we are lucky enough to get an opportunity to actually wear that on our shoulders. All of us, 125 of us when we passed out in our batch, we were as crazy. And the fact remains, of all the Paramveer Chakras given, there are only 3 who were surviving. The rest was given posthumously. Still we were. You know why Paramveer Chakra is important? At the end of the day, it's a piece of metal which is casted just like any other metal. The metal itself is not the point. It is the importance that we give to it that makes it aspirational. Paramveer Chakra cannot be won by anybody and everybody. But just imagine this. When our boys get into combat and display rare courage, how difficult it is to judge whether this is for, the bravery is worth Sena Medal or Paramveer Chakra or Veer Sena Medal. How do you do that? It is very, very difficult. And that's why in very, very rare cases, this is given. It's not given to just anybody and everybody. There are many braves, there are so many Sena medals, so many other gallantry medals which are given. But this is the rare of the rare. It is the importance that we give. The entire selection process is extremely transparent and the standards of it are never diluted. Even if you don't have any winner, it's fine. But it's never diluted. And it is decided by people whom the entire country trusts. They believe in them. They are men of credit, of credibility. Now, apply the same thing to our organization. When we have, let's say, the best employee of the year, or we have the best sustainability practice, or the best manager for sustainability practice, what will make that thing aspirational where people will want to be there is when it is rare. Second, the credibility of it. How the selection is being done and what is the credibility of the people doing this selection. That has to be impeccable. It is not about designations. It is not that all the vice presidents will get together and decide. No. It is about people with credibility who get to do it, and that's what builds it. So the importance of symbols, use it. The initiatives that you launch in your organization, give it that kind of importance. When Bana Singh wears the Paramveer Chakra, even the chief of the army staff salutes the Paramveer Chakra. That is the importance we give that medal. He doesn't salute Bana Singh. He salutes the medal. That's the importance that we give. Now just imagine this. Last year I had the best employee of the year. This year he is nowhere to be seen. Next year, even today's fellow will not be seen at all. But when we do this, when we continue to give them that importance and make that exclusive club, what are we doing? We are locking them in. They are becoming examples for others to follow. They are not the target. Target is everybody else except them, because they've already been there. To make it that aspirational. And because you continue to give that importance to them, they cannot lower their standards anymore. They have to continue to lead with example. This is important. Use symbols. The second thing, language. Now this is not English or Hindi or whichever language. This is the language that we speak, the way we talk. Like when my unit was in counter-insurgency, our entire thought, our entire conversation was on the ops that was happening. What did we learn from the ops? What was where we went right, where we went wrong? Our continuous discussion was that, and we knew that probably tomorrow one of us may not be having this discussion. Because that's the nature of the job. But our conversations were, as a result of which our universe focused on counter-insurgency alone. And every day that we went in little bit more learned officers. And when we came back, we shared our drinks together, we shared our food together, and we kept talking this. So the continuous conversation, the same thing if you look at your organization. If you're looking to build an organization of excellence, keep that as your conversation. Talk that language. Talk in terms of efficiencies of high degree. Acknowledge people who have done great work and improved on that. Values. Nice to have values. But just like now, if you have children or grandchildren at your place, trust me, they don't. You may tell them a million things, what to do, what not to do, but they do what you do. They will follow what you do. And one day turn around and say, Dad, you are doing this, but you tell me not to do it. That day, all your leadership is gone in the recycle bin. Values is something not for others. It is for you to follow, for you to set an example. Because when you do it, people follow automatically. If you are in a situation where you have to impose values on your team, it reflects somewhere on your practice of the values. Do that. So when we talk about, in the army too, when we talk about all the values that we have, it's something that we live day in and day out. That's why the boys, the troops follow you. Follow you to the extent of throwing themselves in the path of the bullet that's coming for you. That is the kind of value that is created. Norms. Very important. I gave you the example of the medical rep work which I was doing. But use norms, create norms. So if you create a norm, let's say, that every team meeting, I will first acknowledge the good work done by my team or individual members of my team on certain behaviors like switching off the computer. If you make that a norm, it will continue. People will want to be talked about. It is about you practicing it and you setting the standard and others following. And fourth, believe. Believe that your employees come into work every day for a better future. No employee walks in the morning saying, today I'm going to mess up my job. I'm going to mess up my company big time. I'm going to be a nuisance value to everybody. Nobody comes. Everybody comes in their own way, and they have their own way of dealing. But as a leader, you are like the ocean in which all types of fish, sharks, all of them live. And there is a balance. You have to believe that your people are good and that they come there to live. You have to deal with different people differently. But if you don't believe tomorrow, and when I was working for a company called AFL, we had my colleague. She was someone who's been in a corporate manager role for almost 10 years before I got promoted in 6 months when after joining. So there was a little bit of discomfort between us in the first 2-3 months. And eventually, of course, she is a wonderful, wonderful person. And she had this habit of coming late. So people were like expecting that this lady is going to be late even after like the meeting starts, and this individual, if comes within half an hour of the meeting starting, it was like, wow, not bad. Yeah, today you made progress. That kind of a stuff. And one fine day, when I reached office, and it was 9 o'clock, she would normally come in at 10. And her car just stopped beside, and she got off the car, and I turned back and said, oh my God, what's wrong with you? And she just smiled and walked in. And then I observed her, she's been coming on time. You know what? I realized that day when she dropped in, I was the first obstacle. I was the first one to discourage. I did not believe that she would do. And I corrected myself in the next regional HR meet. When everybody, she was on time and everybody says, oh my God, how come you're on time? I said, you guys, the regional guys don't know what is happening in corporate. Very bad. She's been on time every time for the last 2 months. And when she got that kind of support, it was, and everybody took note. And that's what helped in making the transition. Believe that your people will deliver. All right. So these 5 things: symbols, language, values, norms, and beliefs.
Wonderful, Captain. I guess sustainable cultural transformations well articulated. Stories you mentioned are wonderful. How you build and connect these is fantastic. Captain also mentioned about being a remote in his childhood, where he took the honors of switching channels for his family. On a lighter note, possibly this is what seeded the operational discipline that helped him get into the army. But I guess the norm you mentioned, Captain, being a role model for others to emulate. Going back some years back, I was in the biggest refining hub in the world watching a movie by Al Gore called The Inconvenient Truth. And only after that, for the first time in life, I switched off the set-top box on my TV and remote for the first time here. So I guess one of the quick lessons from what Captain has said is what are the simple things we can do? What can you switch off? In industry, it could be looking at the carbon-intensive hotspots, plant equipment, machinery, reuse waste heat, recycle, replace old aging equipment, or turning down the thermostat, keeping the heat within insulation, insulating your heaters. Very simple things, but very well said. Well done, Captain. In the interest of time, since Captain has given us almost like trucker, not just culture eating for breakfast, but also lunch and dinner, may I request Raman to come in and tell us also, if you could, on how do corporates integrate sustainability in the work cultures. If you could also discuss a couple of challenges from you mentioned from Sandoz BSF, a couple of these stories you mentioned, challenges that you face, how you could overcome them. I know that we have 15 more minutes to go. So I'd like you to give a small insight into what have worked well and how can this be really embedded in the part of the DNA. Raman?
Good. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll try and make it very brief. So in my experience, there are 2 things that are very important in inculcating sustainability in an organization. One is having a very strong purpose, a purpose statement, right? Increasingly, organizations are recognizing the importance of a very well thought through purpose statement. And here I would like to kind of use the purpose statement that BASF coined about 15 years ago when they started the journey on sustainability, and it went, we create chemistry for a sustainable future. And there were lots of anecdotes, that was shared about how BASF contributes to this. And of course, then once that purpose statement was made, there was a lot of communication where the more than 100,000 employees could understand what does this mean and how can they contribute to this particular purpose statement. And of course, the organization then went on to set up a sustainability steering board right at the top, reporting into the board. It made very, very clear goals as to how it wanted to contribute to sustainability, starting with the standard norms like, the greenhouse gas emission norms compared to a certain year before, how much they wanted to reduce. The standard kind of thing, which has today become almost a standard practice with a lot of companies, which is about reducing water consumption, reducing energy consumption, translating into green energy, etc., etc. But equally importantly, for companies like chemical industry, where safety had become a very, very important topic, so also having safety and health norms for workers, and even integrating sustainability into your portfolio. So what BASF did was to actually divide their portfolio into 4 buckets. They said there will be products that are called accelerators, which are actually products that would contribute to improving sustainability. So let me take an example. BASF makes catalytic converters for automobiles, which helps automobiles reduce their carbon monoxide and nitrous oxide emission. And that, and most of you may know that in 2017, India came in with the Bharat 6 norms for all the passenger and commercial vehicles, which meant any automobile that is manufactured post April 2017 had to adhere to very, very high levels of reduction norms. And this required catalysts, and these catalysts were innovated and supplied by BASF. So clearly, that automobile catalyst is what we would call an accelerator, which it actually contributes to reducing emissions of a large number of vehicles in the world. So that's an example. Then on the other end of the spectrum of this portfolio classification were products that were considered to be actually detrimental to sustainability. And here the company took very, very clear decision that these products we will phase out. And as the CMD of the company at that time, we had a product in our ag division, which was, I think, about 60-70 crore product with a 65% gross margin, with a brand that had existed in the country for nearly 30 years or something, and we had to stop selling that product, right? And those are very, very difficult decision when you have the revenue impact, when you have a highly profitable. So I think that's some of the examples of how, and this is an example of leadership, how then leadership plays a very, very important role in inculcating sustainability across an organization. So the senior management needs to have a very strong belief in the purpose statement. It has to then demonstrate it, and everybody needs to understand it. So I'm going to use a couple of anecdotes of how this gets inculcated in an organization. In BASF, all meetings started with discussing safety, right? All senior management meetings would start discussing, because that's a way to emphasize how important safety is. Every little incident is discussed, is dissected, and what we call as a kappa is actually then discussed at the senior most management level, and there is statistics every month that is sent out saying how incidents have either reduced or increased, and what kind of initiatives are being taken to address it. So that's one example of how do you inculcate. The second one was, and this is an interesting one, sometimes some of these practices have to be so wired into your DNA that you will see this when you walk into an organization. And let me give you an example of this. And I think Captain Tapas talked about norms and values and how it manifests in organization. Here is an example. In BSF, every employee, when you climb stairs, you will hold on to the railing, because it was the norm, because it was inculcated into each one of us that act of holding the railing could mean the difference between somebody twisting an ankle, and having an injury. So, it started in the plants where you have, you're kind of climbing into, higher levels in a multi-level plant, but even in the offices it is practiced. Now we acquired a company which actually was a global company, and I as the CMD and our regional business president and couple of people were visiting the plant in Pune, and we were, as usual, climbing the stairs, and all four of us were holding the railings, and none of the acquired company employees were holding the railings. Okay, so that gives you how certain actions get embedded into the DNA of the individual or the organization. So that's another very interesting example of how simple things get inculcated into the DNA of individuals employed in a company, which is an indicator of culturally how the company has embraced so things like sustainability. Sometimes you can just talk about it, you can produce a lot of reports, but when you walk in and talk to the employees, you know that there is a disconnect between what the company intends to do and what the employees actually end up doing. One of my favorite topics have always been, wherever I've gone, one of the first things I've tried to do is to stop bottled water being supplied inside meeting rooms, etc. I have nothing against bottled water, other than the fact that a lot of plastic is used, and in a country like India, where we don't still responsibly dispose of our plastic waste, I think we need to find ways to reduce the use of plastic. And to me, the more important thing is how much water is wasted. I mean, I would challenge each one of you to go to your offices, wherever you're supplying water bottles, and at the end of the evening, collect all the used water bottles, and I will bet that at least 30% of the water in the bottles remain undrunk, and these are wasted. So you're not only creating unsustainable practices like having more plastic being used, but you're also making a really unsustainable practice of wasting really good water in a country like India, which is really has huge challenges about availability of water. So to me, these are all loads of leadership. I think as a leader in an organization, you need to believe in sustainability, and you need to continuously pull up, whenever you see anything that is deviating from what you intend to achieve, you need to have a conversation around it. More importantly, I think you need to really inculcate a culture where everybody can challenge each other. And here I'll tell you an example. When I was the MD of BSF, we had our office in Navi Mumbai, right opposite of the Turbe station. And one day, in a hurry, I was coming down the stairs, and I was also speaking on the phone, which is an absolute no-no, again, from a safety perspective. And one of the secretaries saw me, and she literally yelled at me saying that, boss, you're not supposed to do this. If you have a culture where somebody at 5 levels below you can challenge you saying that, look, you're not supposed to do it, you know that you have won the war, right? You know now that your culture is really now where it should be. So those are some of my kind of anecdotes that I want to share with you. Another anecdote is, for a number of years, I shared an office room with a young German colleague while I was working at Singapore. And one thing that I learned from him is switching off the lights when I go out for lunch. Yeah. It took me almost a year and a half for that to become automatically, hardwired into me to be able to switch off. But eventually I did. But, in Singapore, it is probably still okay. But in a country like India, I think it is very, very important that each one of us recognize that we are a country of 1.5 billion, and every small act has a multiplication impact in terms of contributing to a better sustainable way or going exactly the opposite. So I want to end my talk, this small session by reading out to you a very, very relevant thing from somebody by name Howard Zinn. And he says, we don't have to engage in grand heroic actions to participate in change. Small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can transform the world. I think this is much more relevant to our country than to any other part of the world today. So I think, if we start this whole sustainability practice from home, like charity starts at home, if we start this at home, at our workplace, by doing simple things like, switching off lights when we go out, switching off the air conditioner, try not use, bottled waters when you can easily have, boiled water, clean drinking tap, or even large containers of Bisleri that is, much more efficient. I think we'll be making a real impact, positive impact in the world. In addition, there are a number of other things. I think sustainability is not a rocket science. I think, our 3 generations ago, our forefathers practiced it. Even 2 generations ago, they practiced a lot of it. I think it's time to kind of recognize that and then come back to it. Then, of course, once we do that, the higher levels of sustainability on how do we sequester carbon, how do you reduce carbon in our manufacturing strategies, all of this will come automatically and naturally, because I think that human ingenuity and our ability to really innovate and create technology to address some of the issues that we are today facing, I'm very optimistic. I think we can do it. But what is more important is to start at home and do these simple, small acts, which when multiplied by 1.5 billion, can make this country a far better place to live for our future generations than it is today. So with that, thank you for the opportunity, and I'll be happy to take any questions or any comments that we have.
Wonderful. Well said. I guess you spoke about the purpose, the quadruple bottom line, as we say. Beyond the triple bottom line that comprises people, planet, and profits, the fourth component, purpose or principles. So as I said, the cause without an inspiring purpose, strategy often fades from active consideration. Need to bring a sharper focus on governance and respect for culture. As you said very correctly, a couple of stories you mentioned also, I think, resonates with what we spoke earlier. Be it the way we walk the talk, as Captain said, either holding handrails or not talking on the cell phones while walking, or even, as you said, even I mentioned a couple of stories where you're looked at what you do rather than what you speak. The simple actions that we speak, we do, is what can make the culture really drive forth. Fantastic. So, Anushi, it's all in your court. You have, I think, they say that all the people there on the call are looking forward to a happy ending. So, how do you think, Anushi, to cap up this business end of the session, how do you think corporate culture would work with a mandate? If you can also give a couple of examples to help internalize this and give the relevance of what we do, and the big demystify all of that for us. Get us connected with all of that, if you can, please.
Of course. Thank you so much for the enlightening, sessions by Captain and by Raman sir. So this is, what happens is that we always speak about sustainability and following that as a corporate culture. And there are aspects which can be, there can be 2 segments of this. One is the tangible, or you can say a quantifiable segment, and one is the intangible segment. The values, the beliefs, like, what Captain mentioned, are extremely important in a very, very long run of the business. It is somewhere from the corporate culture, what we name as it comes from there. And we truly all have to value that. But having said that, every corporate also has to go through a mandates which they need to comply with in order to be compliant, because that is also something which brings in a value, that how appropriate is your corporate in complying with the standards, or complying with the mandates, or complying with the regulatory. So these are certain aspects which are very important. And with Iris, what we bring into the table is all the platforms where you will be able to comply with your ESG mandates. So whether it is BRSR, whether it is if you have companies which are operating out of India, US, Europe, Middle East, definitely we cover all these aspects. The impact of ESG reporting, like what you are able to see currently on the slide, it brings in the lower cost of capital. So from the the financial point of view, whatever we have seen right now, even this shortest example which Raman sir just gave, like replacing the plastic bottles. Why not carry your own bottle, a water bottle, when you are going to office? Why not? That definitely saves. So little, any of the little contribution also makes big impact when it is done all together. Similarly, these are the non-financial aspects, definitely, or at a later stage it counts into and sums up into financial aspects at a particular point of time. But from the financials point of view, or from the you can say the annual report perspective, what it brings to the table is lower cost of capital. It increases in the shareholders' value. So if I am an investor, I'm a stakeholder, I'm looking after a company, I would definitely be interested in seeing that what green initiatives is this company taking, how is it complying, so that is something, the green investing is something which definitely will catch my eye and attract more of the investments. Yes, so many of the times in other countries, we do have certain initiatives wherein if your company is following a particular mandate, definitely they get a subsidy, so you get subsidies as good as 10% subsidy for a certain kind of payments which you are needed to be made to the government. So there are certain initiatives which are also taken by the government to enforce or to encourage corporates to adopt this ESG culture. ESG worldwide, like we spoke about the initiatives which do not have any geographic boundaries. So basically, you like whatever examples Captain or Raman sir stated, these all are like it can be adopted across the globe. They do not have any boundaries. But when it comes to mandate or when it comes to compliance, definitely each of the geography have their own mandates. And so we have European Union with CSRD, wherein you have to follow the ESRS. We have United States with currently stating about the climate disclosure. There is a lot of things which are coming into the store for the climate disclosure for US. And yes, United Kingdom have their own set of rules. Local versus the major mandate is something which also the corporates will have to deal with, because my country's local law is saying so and so, and the overall mandate is saying so and so. You have to figure out a golden spot over there, and you have to go ahead and comply with the ESG requirements. So Iris, in these cases, definitely I will speak about it in later slides, but how to get it started, because whenever you have compliance comes into picture, it becomes a little difficult to find out where do I start with. In India, there is not a problem because we have BRSR now for quite some time. But when it comes to a listed entity which is listed not in India but across elsewhere, then definitely how to start with the mandates, because over there the mandates are coming in right now. Map your stakeholders' expectations. So if you know that what my stakeholder will look after, if I'm a particular industry type, yes, my stakeholder will be definitely interested in what initiatives I'm taking from the corporate social responsibility, or what initiatives I'm taking from the ESG perspective. The tangible aspects of that is something which my investors will be looking after. Aligning the ESG practices with the disclosures. So definitely what I am practicing in my corporate. So if I have the the resource ratio appropriate, why not to disclose that? Why not to consider it as a sustainability development goal of my corporate? So that is something the value will be derived, because I'm making a focus upon the tangible aspect of it, and I'm bringing it into a picture. Standard definition for reporting concepts, definitely something which is interpreted and interpretable by everyone is something I would definitely like to go ahead and disclose in my annual or the ESG reports. Change ESG practices if necessary. So if you're going ahead with a particular framework, but somehow for the corporate practices or for the industry type, it is not suitable, please take a leap. Please go ahead and with that leap of faith, change the practices, adopt a framework which is friendly for your corporate culture. Discussions with the C-suite, yes, it is the most important thing, because as you know, Captain mentioned that, you know, the strategies are starting with the management, but the effects are seen at the grassroots level. That is what he mentioned, and that is how the policies get into picture. The discussions with the C-suite is the most important thing. So if you know the outcome, it is worth discussing first and getting ahead the green signal to go ahead with. Making your ESG disclosure public, this is the most important thing that any of the investor will be looking into it, and they will be, you know, putting a focus upon what a corporate is doing for their ESG from their ESG perspective, so that I can go ahead and invest my money in that particular company. But not the least, please engage with the ESG reporting with the stakeholders. So engage your stakeholders with the ESG reporting what you have. You can ask for their, you know, inputs while preparing or getting ready for your ESG reporting. There are certain things which needs to be considered from the ESG reporting perspective, because we are speaking about the corporate practices. Definitely, you need to have a ESG strategy first. You need to have the appropriate resources who will be, you know, going ahead and employing all these kind of strategies across the organization. Like, you know, Raman sir mentioned that the structure or the corporate culture starts from the root level, and if you have a hierarchy wherein, you know, the lower level hierarchy also brings in the culture by mentioning in that this is not supposed to be done, then it is very, very powerful. So that is what your resources for ESG reporting helps you bring out from your corporate culture. Your ESG data collection process. So when we say data collection, definitely you are mentioning a few things which are quantitative. The quantitative disclosure or the process of it is to be streamlined. It is to be defined way ahead, and the calculators, or you can say the aspects or pointers for these data collection points are to be determined well in advance. Should have a stringent ESG rollout plan. Of course, the corporates have become very, very you know, cautious about, and I will say not only cautious, but yes, very, very you know, they feel that the ESG reporting is something which is deriving great value to the organization, and that's why the ESG rollout plan is must in such scenarios. Speaking about the reporting across the globes, we have BRSR. I will be coming to that point, but yes, across the globe, let's take an example of Europe geography, wherein we have ESRS. The compliance can be done as simple as using the templates, wherein you actually do not have to, you know, scratch your head a lot. You can simply pull on the template, get the information what you need to disclose as per your industry standard or as per your industry type, and you can simply fill in the data. So yes, data collection along with the guidance of an intuitive platform is very important when you are rolling out your ESG strategy. Coming to your BRSR, now it is a very matured, you can say, compliance which is there. What can be derived from this compliance? The data which we mentioned, that it is a golden, you know, depository, or you can say repository, which brings in a lot of value for the investors. You can definitely draw out the comparison, the insights through different kind of aspects. So when we say what we bring to the table, we bring your compliance reporting apart from your internal strategies, which will help you to define your sustainability development goals, that is SDGs. Along with that, reporting of these SDGs becomes very important, and that is where we come into picture. You can go ahead and draft your ESG reports. Along with that, whatever is submitted through BRSR, you can draw different types of analytics and reports using the data consumption segment of this. That is the collect, create, and consume. So the consume segment of it comes into picture of this. Along with Iris, you will be completely compliant with your ESG reporting, which is a very important again aspect of the corporate culture, employing in your ESG strategies. Yes, where can we help? We can help you with the gap analysis. As said, that if you are confused with what kind of standards to follow, you can simply go ahead and fill in the template and draw out the output, wherein you will get to see that what all is required to be complied with the your corporate structure and the service industry. Definitely authoring of the sustainability reports. So when we say you can draw the gap analysis, you can also author it and transform the data into digital format. So that is the tagging piece of it comes into the digital conversion of your information. So drawing more value, more transparency for the data, that is the benefit of digital reporting, which facilitates the peer-to-peer benchmarking. Like we saw in the previous example of Principle 6, wherein there was a comparison between same industry type. So that's all about me from the corporate structure. How can you go ahead and comply with this? For more information, you can definitely read on the resources with ESG blogs, ESG reporting basics, the gap analysis, how it can be done. And also you can see the IXBRL or the conversion of the data into the digital format for our gap ESG report, which uses SASB framework. Yes, that's all from my side. Thank you everyone for joining me. I know we are a little bit on board, over the board from the time aspect of it, but definitely the session was extremely insightful from Captain and Raman's side. Shankar, thank you so much for moderating it and putting the pieces, the puzzle blocks into proper pieces. It was super helpful.
Thank you so much. Good as gold you are, Anushi. Well done. Big thanks to Anushi, Raman, Captain Tapas, and also the backend team of Satish, Shailendra from DA, Rosefield, Mohita, and the entire Iris team. Here is some bonus for you. I think as we get into BRSR and discuss assurance ratings, here is some exciting offers for all the people on the webinar who spent. And thank you so much for joining early and coming in. Thank you for your feedback, Abhijit, Hitesh. Really appreciate your takeaways. Any questions? If you have this one feedback from Hitesh, there's one, I think, question that comes in. I think the summary across the series of what we've done here from 5th February to 5th March to April 5th, I think overall this webinar summarized all that we said, that sustainability initiatives are strategized and orchestrated at the board level, but the true impact needs to resonate and measured at the grassroots level. This is where the actual rubber hits the road. And this is where the tangible effects of sustainability could be seen, and how the efforts can be seen, how this can be felt. I think a lot of examples given by Raman and by Captain. Anushi also mentioned a nice connect of how this could be actually measured and the efficacy of this broader strategic vision. So here's looking forward to more insights on the strategy going forward. People on the call, if you've got any other questions, we're happy to take them. Otherwise, thank you and keep watching this space for more and more action. The final ending, they say, sustainability evam jayate. This is what succeeds, this is what sustains. Thank you so much for your time. Be safe, be sustainable.
Thank you, everyone. Good day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye for now.
The webinar has ended. Thank you for joining. Goodbye.